Good morning, everybody. I've learned something along the way, and a lot of people wonder, how can you retire so early? Well, a lot of it is a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work, and a little bit of financial restraint. And so, did you realize looking poor can actually make you rich and can actually give you a much more fulfilling retirement? 100%. So there's this dopamine hit. We all get it. And a lot of us like to live in this world of consumerism. We buy goods, we see that shiny new car, we see that big house, we see all of these things, new purses, new wallets, new clothes, and we get all excited and we want some of that. Everybody wants nice things. Well, most people do. But I had an uncle many years ago. He was one of the richest men that you would ever meet in terms of, within a reasonable level. He's no Elon level, but he did very well for himself. He had a pottery business, a plumbing business. He owned multiple walk-up apartments, multiple rental homes. He had a cabin at a lake. And he had a lot of those types of things, but most of them were revenue generators. And if you look at him, you'd think there's no way this guy has money. He wore old blue jeans and, he wore one of those old classic wallets, with the chain on it that hangs down, not when it was cool, before it was cool, when, older farmers did it. He drove an older Ford Ranger, and he was the nicest of guys, the most humble, and truly an inspiration to me. But what I learned from him was he wasn't rich by showing how rich he was. He wasn't rich by advertising, bragging, buying all those big expensive goods. He wore very plain clothes, blue jeans, a plaid shirt, and quite often things were very simple. He didn't do brand names of anything. He didn't do brand names of vehicles, nor did he brand new names of clothes. Remember, he's from a generation, I don't know, you could argue, I think boomer generation, where he came from a space, from farming and hard life, and he knew what it meant. And a lot of us do. And I'm seeing that because of inspirations like my uncle, and inspirations as well, like even what I've seen in a lot of people that, I know close to me, that have put themselves in these positions because of hard work and ignoring all the consumerism around us. And that is a reality. But so what people get caught up in is trying to look apart, trying to look rich, trying to be something maybe that they're not. And that's, I know a lot of people say, I work hard for my money, I deserve it. And absolutely, we all have things sometimes that we love to buy. We all have things that sometimes they're knee-jerk responses. Sometimes we thought about them for a while. Sometimes we justify them by the sense that, hey, I've worked hard. I deserve it. I make good money. But see, that's the problem. Herein lies the issue. So a lot of people get the sense of, I need more of this, I need more of that. And what they'll end up doing is they'll go buy a good. They'll buy this. They'll get this hollow sense that I need this. I need that new purse. I need that new wallet. Oh, I like that cool shirt. But it's only $190 for that golf shirt. Does that make sense? In most cases, no, it doesn't. But people get in that sense that they need it, they want it, and there's this draw, this magnetism to do this. I'm not here as a psychologist or sociologist or try to tell you in some fancy frames and terminology, but that is a reality. You get the sense that you're being drawn to it and you want it. It's almost like a drug. So you go, it's been anticipating, it's been bugging you, you go there, you buy it. You get this immediate gratification, this excitement, this joy, this happiness, this fun. Oh, look at this beautiful new $185 shirt. And then, unfortunately, what ends up happening is you get this high, it's a dopamine hit, and that's what your system knows. And it's not something that you can actually intentionally create. This is subconsciously going on. You're not deciding this. You're deciding, I'm going to buy that. But it's these feelings internally that is driving this need to buy these goods. So you get this dopamine hit, you buy this goodie, you get all this rush and this excitement, but then there's this sort of deflection back the other way. Because what happens is you've satisfied that niche, you've satisfied that need for the hit, so to speak, and you buy the goodies, and it doesn't take very long, and quite often it doesn't mean anything anymore. And the unfortunate part is the more we get into this cycle, the more challenged we get with, our resources, our financial resources. And that is a big part of how people get snookered, how they get into this position, because it's what ends up happening. And we all know people like this, where you get this rush. I need that. I want it. You get infatuated. You're browsing, you're searching it, you're shopping, and you look at all these, you look at all over the internet and maybe go shopping in a store and you feel it, you touch it. So, I need that. I'm buying it. And then lo and behold, shortly thereafter, you buy it, the rush goes away, and a lot of times that goodies just hits the floor, goes into the closet. Maybe it's a fancy purse. It just gets tucked away in the closet and never to be used again. Never even opened it out of the bag. Have you ever known anybody like that? Where they buy this thing that they needed to have, they wanted to have it, and then it just gets thrown into a corner and never used. See, that is a part of the issue, and it's a consumerism, but it's driven internally. You feel like you need this, and we all have these moments. But the more you can change that, the more you can put yourself in a position of, like this person I know, like my uncle, who actually found wealth and live in a very simple way. Now, it's not about living like a pauper, and it's not about living in a tent. We all need the basic needs. We need to eat, a roof over our head, food. All those things are important and fundamental to our survival, and we want to feel comfortable. We all want to feel good. So it doesn't mean you don't buy clothes. It doesn't mean you don't buy a car. But clearly, think a little bit more of the needs versus the wants, and try to find that separation, because that is one of the biggest factors to people limiting themselves either in retirement or not getting to retirement, is this constant need and want to buy these goods, these commercial goods that you don't really need. Ultimately, if you learn to transition and you change this mindset, because it is kind of a mindset, and you sort of let yourself get there, because there's this margin. It's like a financial margin, if you can. Okay, it's all about living below your means. And when I say financial margin, I mean there's people that make minimum wage and they find ways to be very moderate, live well within their means, because they just live that way. They keep things simple, their clothing, their transportation, where they live, and they find ways to live within their means. That financial margin. In other words, you make more than you spend. There's people that are making millions and they're stressed out because their financial margin is not there, because they spend to their means. And or beyond their means. Quite often that's the big challenge. And a lot of people are like that. You make more, you go through your career, you're making more and more. I've been there. We've all been there, right? You start out making $10 an hour, and you move your way up. Okay, you're living very simply. You're eating, brown paper bag lunches. Then you move up. All of a sudden, he's making $30 an hour. Okay, now I'm going to go eat out 3 times a week. Then all of a sudden you're making $40 an hour. Now you're starting to do other things and buying other goods that a lot of times, you look 5-10 years before, you would never even think about. And it didn't even matter. That was the funny part. None of that mattered. Because remember, we've talked about this, growing up as a boomer, in my case, Gen X, a lot of us, we grew up in a time in the 70s and the 80s where things were simple. We were entertained and amused with cardboard boxes and playing with dirt. I enjoyed playing on the farms in the summertime as a kid, and I played, and it was the simplest time, and it was the best time ever, because I wasn't distracted by all this commercialism. And that's the problem. Did you realize statistics show, and there was a couple of things surveys. 72% of Americans are stressed out that they don't make enough money. 73% of Canadians feel the same way. A lot of that comes from because they don't have that financial margin. So when you train yourself that you don't need all that junk, that you need the basics, instead of buying that $185 shirt, maybe buy that $22 shirt or watch for sales. And that's ultimately is training yourself in your mind that you don't need all this stuff that you thought you needed. Because the sooner you can train yourself to say, look, you know what, I'm going to transition myself. I don't need all these goodies. I'm going to just do what I need and not what I want. Because then you can start to build a nest egg. So if you're not retired yet, it allows you the opportunity to potentially build some money, to allow you to potentially retire. And on top of that, if you are retired, having this mindset of, realizing and understanding that there is this dopamine hit, and that's what's driving you to buy these goods. So you get that hit, it dissipates, you're on this hedonic treadmill. Essentially, hedonism, you get into the space where it cycles. So you get this and it comes back down and levels back out to where you once were. So whatever your baseline is, whether you're sad or you're moderately joyous or you're really excitable, whatever your baseline is, that dopamine hit will take you up, drop you back down, and you'll level back out. And that's a common phenomenon. And understanding how that works up here and here is the first sign the first, opportunity for us to get a hold of these financial challenges and constraints. And you'll notice it's quite loud out here. And see, this is kind of my point. There's a lot of people, and granted, there's a lot of young people, you got to work. I mean, that's why retirement age is set at, 55, 60, 65, 67, because they know that's your useful working years. But it's also where people start developing these habits of spending. And spending in these ways just gets you trapped. It gets you on that treadmill. I mean, think of it this way. If you have that financial margin, wouldn't you much rather be in a position where if your boss calls you to his office, you're always stressed out? Would you rather be in that position because financially you don't have that margin? You are worried every single meeting you have with your boss. You're worried about every interaction, and you're worried about your performance reviews because you don't have that financial margin. But isn't it a much nicer place? And I was building that up. And for those that don't realize this, through the last course of, I would say, 6 to 7 years, I was starting to build that capacity into my life. So that if the boss had these difficult conversations, I wasn't worried. Because wouldn't it be great to be able to walk into your boss's office and tell you exactly what you think? Verbatim? I mean, that's a much nicer, much more free experience. And so ultimately, this is all I'm trying to say is the simpler you can make life, the more financial margin you can provide for yourself. And essentially, if it means looking poor, and I don't mean poor, living in a tent and looking, like you've been living on the street for the last 6 months. I mean, just average, right? Plain clothes, plain shirt. You don't look like too fancy. Drive a moderate vehicle. Live in a decent sized house, or at least within your means. Living within your means and well within your means so you can build that margin means that the first step to major financial freedom, first step to reducing stress, because tightening up that margin, lowering that margin increases stress. That's a given. And unfortunately, because it's inversely proportional, the tighter your margin, or if you, forbid, cross that margin and go the other way where you're constantly going backwards every month, that's even ultimately stressful. So the last thing you want to do is that. What you do want to do is get yourself in a position, building a nest egg, building that margin, and by doing so, you might look slightly poor. I'm okay. I don't worry about what people think. Most of these people that walk by on the street or drive by, I don't know them. They don't know me. They might see me. They might think, hey, look at this guy. Look how poor he looks. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'll probably never see them again. And even if I do, I've probably got an ace up my sleeve. Anyway, I don't know, everybody. What are your thoughts about this? Like I said, I thought I'd change it up a little bit. Instead of doing the regular route, notice no coffee today. I'm going to actually get the coffee, and I thought I would kind of have this talk before I have the coffee. Have a good chat with all you guys. I really do appreciate it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, what this means. Do you feel like looking poor is the answer, and not just look poor just to look poor, but that drives the commercialism. So if you're looking less wealthy, then chances are, statistically, they show people that dress more poorly and live well below their means are historically far more well off and have built a much bigger nest egg. Honestly, it just seems like that's kind of the typical. So trying to shoot for the stars to look like something maybe you're not and live beyond your means is the quickest, fastest way to poverty. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts, everybody. I mean, it's something we all get trapped in, right? We work hard, we want to reward ourselves, but unfortunately in doing so, we get that immediate hit and then it just goes away and we're waiting for the next big hit. So sadly, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Please do drop a line. We'll talk to you all real soon. See you then. Bye-bye.